Happy Independence Day. It's time for a new edition of the Captain's Quarters podcast. That was silly. Something in my mouth like a spider web. All right, now, it's good to see my crew back again. There's Navigator Longwood, looking like he's getting ready to do a Slim Jim commercial. And there's Hellfire. Good to see you, Hellfire. Good to have you aboard.
Captain.
A few people are signing in. We've got some people coming in. I don't expect many to be here tonight because it is Independence Day. It is the 4th of July, and many people probably have fireworks to go see. Or some people might be just cuddling their dogs and their cats because of all the noise about to happen for the night. But if you're here, great. If not, we hope you'll watch it during the week. We got some fun stuff planned for you tonight. And in fact, ladies and gentlemen, if you like what we do, we want you to go to our YouTube channel and subscribe and like and get all the bells and the whistles and be a part of everything that we do weekly. Ladies and gentlemen, the Captain's Quarters podcast has been going for now over a half a year, and we've done real well. We'll talk about more of that, how well we've done later on. But I think we need to kick off the 4th of July festivities with a bit of fanfare. What do you say, Mr. Navigator?
Aye, I like that.
Good job, Mr. Navigator. I did not even realize I knew how to play the drums. How about that? Cheers to everybody. Oh, and a quick reminder, our rum for this evening is Santa Teresa 1796. It is a good year. This bottle happened to be my first housewarming gift in our new home here in St. Augustine, Florida, from my good friend and the quartermaster of the St. Augustine Swashbucklers, Quartermaster Pugh, Mr. Leon. And ladies and gentlemen, this is our new podcast studio. What do you think of it? Mr. Longwood and myself worked hard on it the other night, making sure it was all set, making sure all the electronics are down and ready to go. And look at us now, just like a bunch of real professionals, even though I still don't like computers. But, oh well. How about a quote of the week, Mr. Longwood? Do you have one?
I do have the quote. Did you want the question or the quote?
Let's do the quote first.
Okay.
And the quote of the week, ladies and gentlemen, is, drum roll, there it is. In the truest sense, freedom cannot be bestowed, it must be achieved. Franklin Delano Roosevelt. What a great quote for today, very appropriate. Ladies and gentlemen, our forefathers did an awful lot and achieved great freedom that now goes through the last 200 plus years. So ladies and gentlemen, cheers to our forefathers on Independence Day. Cheers. On that note, we might as well go ahead with the question of the day. How do you celebrate the 4th of July? Is it fireworks? Is it barbecue? Do you hang out with friends? Who and what are your favorite things to do on the 4th of July? We'll be looking at those answers through the questions when we get towards the end of the show, and we'll be talking about those things. But for now, let's talk about Crew Adventures 2022. Crew Adventures, ladies and gentlemen, we have two things coming up. And you can see right now we have the Crew Social and Recruitment, July 2022. It's actually July 17th. And if anybody is watching and would like to be a part of the St. Augustine Swashbucklers, this is an open invitation for you to be a part of our crew. We have decided by vote, which is how crews work, to extend our membership past the 45 to 50 members we have. And we have at least a dozen new members coming into our social. It will be a grand time. Obviously, June 18th is come and gone. We postponed that event. The St. Augustine Rum Festival, we have postponed that one also till 2023, only because of the timing of everything that has happened over the last 2 or 3 months. Of course, we will be doing December and October. We're not sure yet what we'll be doing, but we will be doing something. And of course, every Monday, Captain's Quarters podcast for you to be a part of what we do. So ladies and gentlemen, that's the Crew Adventures, but we have two things coming up. July 17th is the Crew Social and Meeting and new members. And on July 21st, I will be meeting with a brand new dreamer from Dreams Come True down at the St. Augustine Pirate and Treasure Museum for a little bit of afternoon fun with that young dreamer and their family. This one being brought together and sponsored by the Crew of the 13, another crew in this area. They've asked me to help them out, and we will be giving them a little bit of help there at the Pirate and Treasure Museum. So those are the two things that are coming up soon. I do know a couple of other things off the top of my head. Ladies and gentlemen, July 30th, the Seawolves, the Palm Coast Seawolves, they are doing a second installment of their murder mystery show. It was such a hit back in May, I believe it was, or was it June? It was such a hit that they got so many requests, they decided to do it one more time. Captain Mayhem, myself, yes, I will be there doing a little bit of magic during the intermission and up to the show. And the dinner is always wonderful. And the talents of the play is a lot of fun. If you haven't got your tickets, you should. Next Monday, we'll pop that up on the screen to let you know how. But believe it or not, as of a week ago, they only had 12 tickets left. They're doing good again. And all their money, ladies and gentlemen, that they raise down there, they are working with the Flagler County Foster Children's Program and Displaced Children's Program. And we'll be helping them out with that also. So good shout out to our friends at the Seawolf Privateers, and good luck on your next foray into the entertainment world. I believe that's about it. Have I missed anything, Longwood?
Nope, you're right on schedule.
All right, very good. We're good to go. We'll keep it up with that. And how about past events? We just finished an event this past Monday, a week ago tonight, and it was at the Oak Tree, a part of the Colonial Quarter experience. And it was for a good friend of ours. It was a benefit. And that benefit was for our good friend, Randy Rose. He was a manager over there at the Colonial Quarter and always made sure he was watching the back of the St. Augustine Swashbucklers for every event we ever did over there. A good man, but he suffered a stroke many months ago and is now dealing with all the financial burdens that come with it. So we had a big party, did some raising of some funds, and I believe Mr. Longwood was there with his cameras documenting the Swashbucklers' involvement. So go ahead, Mr. Longwood, pop. That last one there, ladies and gentlemen, looking like the quartermaster and I are on a merry-go-round, is a little contraption that some friends of ours bring to some of the events. You can stand on this platform, and a camera on a long arm does a spin all the way around you, giving you that effect. It's pretty cool. We decided to do it. You'll probably see more and more of that as we put it on our show, because Mr. Longwood's pretty happy with himself in that one. So I think we should do that one and use it on a regular basis. We need to figure out how to use it for promotions. What do you say, Mr. Longwood?
I like it.
Good. How'd you like it, Mr. Mason?
Well, that was the first time I've seen it. And
what
was that, Captain?
We're going to have to put you on that platform one of these times, too.
That was the first time I saw that, and that was awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Pretty cool. So, ladies and gentlemen, that was the benefit of the oak tree and having a good time there. So, we normally will let you know in advance of our special guests, but tonight we have two special guests for the show, and we thought just maybe we'd keep it a secret up until this time. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's now my pleasure to introduce two of the most prolific pirate rappers in the world, and that would be IC's Mayhem and DL Navigator. Play it away.
They call me the general, I don't mean to be crass. I'm gonna take it to the limit, cause it's time to kick some real ass. The king, the royal, his highness, the honcho. I'll kick it to him like a macho Camacho. See, he's got the moves, he's with the part of the year. You tried to catch me, but you couldn't, cause I shifted into fifth gear. We'll rise above, we're working the transcendence. Shout it out, we declare our independence. He's as ancient as a mariner, he'll still get down, you see? I get electric when I fly my kite. He's getting bigger on the trigger, pump, pump in the gunfight. Time to be, gonna kick some common sense. Gathering up the main event to take it on the offense. Sun is rising, it's a sign of our ascendance. Up to the race, we declare independence. Tom and Jay, I'm the man with the grand plan in my right hand. It's kicking grab, I'm gonna take it to the promised land. Bust some crazy raps with the paper and the pen. He's rocking it on the mic to the king and his henchmen. I wrote the letter and my homies called the team back. Johnny H. Come and kick it on the dotted line. Free folk opinion is required by attendance. We're here to tell you we declare independence.
Ladies and gentlemen, I don't normally like rap music, but those two guys are pretty good. And they had those backup guys, the Founding Fathers. Yes. Just a little bit of fun for us all here on Independence Day, the 4th of July, 2022. I hope you enjoyed that. It was a lot of fun seeing it put together. So now, let's talk about the 4th of July. I have some information to share with you about the 4th of July. I took some notes so I would have some things to share, some things that are pertinent to St. Augustine and Independence Day. Now, many of you may know, and if you don't, here's your first lesson. St. Augustine was not only Spanish. The Spanish gave it over to the British in 1763 to 1784. 20 years that the British had St. Augustine. Now, in that time frame, ladies and gentlemen, the British used the Castillo de San Marcos as a prison. And it wasn't called the Castillo de San Marcos either. I bet you don't know what it was called, but the British called it Fort St. Mark. Now, in 1780, the British brought in a shipload of prisoners from the Carolinas, approximately 37 men that were brought here at that point in time. Here's the interesting part. 3 of those men had signed the Declaration of Independence. Their names were Thomas Haywood Jr., Arthur Middleton, and Edward Rutledge. They were all three rounded up with many of the other Carolinians who were anti-British, rounded up, put on a ship, and brought here to St. Augustine, where they served over a year of imprisonment. There were more and more brought here. Several hundred from Virginia were brought here, and they were kept in a camp out on the island. But after a while, it got too much for the British to keep all these prisoners, so they gave them freedom to build their own food and cook their own food and do what they needed, but still kept them there on the island of Anastasia. Now, often we think, what's the first celebration of the 4th of July? Well, there's two, ladies and gentlemen. The first one I'm going to tell you about was in actual 1781. As soon as I can make my computer screen do what I want it to do, I'll bring it up. 1781, July, in fact, the first day of July 1781, a ship enters the harbor carrying orders for the immediate exchange of prisoners. The British are not doing so well in 1781, and all these prisoners were to be let loose and sent home. Well, guess what? Since it was pretty obvious, they had a 4th of July celebration on July 4th, or the week of July 4th, 1781, with all the prisoners being set free, and some of the St. Augustinians who were not anti-British joined in on that celebration, ladies and gentlemen. So that's the first unofficial 4th of July celebration, 1781. Now, let's see if I can make my computer work here. It's giving me some fits, but let's see what we can, there we go. But how about the first official celebration of the 4th of July? Well, I have it right here in my notes. Many of you may know. Let's see. Can anybody tell me what March 3rd, 1845 is? Anybody at home? Mr. Longwood? Mr. Hellfire, what do you think? It is the official statehood of the state of Florida, 1845. March 3rd. So, ladies and gentlemen, when July 4th came around, the first official celebration of the 4th of July as a state, the state of Florida, happens in 1845. Now, the ceremonies held here locally were held in the courtroom. Actually, the governor's house downtown on the town square. But it focused not just on the birth of liberty, but commemorating and honoring the recent death of Andrew Jackson, 1845. So there's your first official Independence Day celebration as a state, the state of Florida. Brought to you by the National Geographic and the History Channel. That's where we try to get most of our information. Any questions at all, Mr. Longwood, Mr. Hellfire?
From us or from the peanut gallery?
Let's go with the gallery. Any comments or questions? Let's see what we have.
Looks like we're all caught up, Captain.
Be careful talking like that. You could end up prisoners in the Castillo, and it's happened before. Of course it has. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, freedom isn't free. You have to work for it. What else do we have on the charts there? I see quite a few names. We got quite a few watchers tonight. Welcome aboard, everybody, I say. Welcome aboard. Anything good there we can throw up? Miss Donna says hello. Hello, Miss Donna. Glad you're with us. Everybody, Nightingale in Florida says happy 4th. Very good, very good. Happy Independence Day to Scarlett Dearheart, who, by the way, will be with us in person in the studio on September 19th. Hey, Scarlett, what do you think of this new podcast studio? Hi, thank you very much. It does look amazing. It feels amazing, and it's great to be here doing our show right here from the new Captain's Quarters podcast studio in my new home. Yes, ladies and gentlemen. Well, we'll have to remember that. We became the 37th state in 1845. The climate and the scenery make me glad that I'm alive. Well, I'll have to remember that from now on. Thank you very much. And for those that don't know, Miss Donna was a wonderful school teacher. And when we go out, and she's part of the Swashbucklers, and when we go out and do events, there are young kids that come up and say, "Hey, Miss Donna," and their parents come right along because Miss Donna was working with all of them. Let's see, Mr. Rise, does the city not recognize the fact that the British held the fort for 20 years? I guess they don't really, but we know 1763 to 1784 that the British had control of St. Augustine. And in fact, when the British had control of St. Augustine, one of the excerpts I read was that St. Augustine basically became a military town. It was not the thriving kind of town that it was under the Spanish, or the thriving kind of town it is under modern day tourism. It was a military specific town because the British were afraid that the American forces were going to come down and take the Castillo de San Marcos. But the fort went back to the Spanish in 1784. There's a few people here on our listing that I'm sure can be quite easy to tell us even more if they want to throw something in, but I tried to keep it simple for tonight because, well, it is our first time and I just want everybody to admire our studio. Aye. So, how many of you, I'm not going to ask it that way. I'm going to put it out this way. So many of you are closer to my age than some of you want to admit. And Mr. Longwood was doing some looking, and some of you will remember the old days in the 80s of Schoolhouse Rock. Remember those things? Well, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Longwood found one that actually talks about our independence time. Now, I will say this before he plays it. It actually has no mention of St. Augustine in it, because like all states in the United States of America, they start their American history with the British occupation in the 1600s, and they completely leave out the 100 years of Spanish here in what would become the United States of America. But it's still, this is an oldie but a goodie. I remember it from when I was a child. Mr. Longwood, put it up there.
Rocking and a rolling, smishing and a splashing over the horizon. What can it be? The pilgrims sailed the sea to find a place to call their own. In their ship Mayflower, they hoped to find a better home. They finally knocked on Plymouth Rock, and someone said, "We're there." It may not look like home, but at this point I don't care. Oh, they were missing Mother England. They swore their loyalty until the very end. Anything you say, King, it's okay, King. You know it's kind of scary on your own. Gonna build a new land the way we planned. Could you help us run it till it's grown? They planted corn, you know, they built their houses one by one. And bit by bit they worked until the colonies were done. They looked around, yeah, up and down, and someone said, "Hooray! If the king could only see us now, he would be proud of us today." They knew that now they'd run their own land. But George III still vowed he'd rule them to the end. Anything I say, do it my way now. Anything I say, do it my way. Don't you get to feeling independent, 'cause I'm gonna force you to obey. He taxed their property, he didn't give them any choice. And back in England, land, it didn't give them any voice. That's called taxation without representation, and it's not fair. But when the colonies complained, the king said, I don't care. He even has the nerve to tax our cup of tea. To put it kindly, King, we really don't agree. Gonna show you how we feel. We're gonna dump this tea and turn this harbor into the biggest cup of tea in history. They wanted no more mothering land. They knew the time had come for them to take command. It's very clear you're being unfair, King. No matter what you say, we won't obey. Gonna hold a revolution now, King, and we're gonna run it all away with no more king.
We're going to elect a president.
No more king.
He's going to do what the people want.
No more king.
We're going to run things our way.
No more king.
Nobody's
going to tell us what to do. Rocking and a rolling, sishing and a splashing over the horizon. What can it be? Looks like it's going to be a free country.
I think I see a Waddle Dee.
Very good, Mr. Longwood. Very good. That brings back memories. We might have to find some more of those. The one I really like is the one about the bill passed in the House and the Senate. I remember that one too.
Oh, Don and I actually own the DVDs of all of them.
Do you really?
Yes, every
Well,
single
we'll
one
just
they
have to
made.
make sure we use those. They come in handy and they do have meaning. I just pulled up the History Channel, or the History Channel, ladies and gentlemen, so I can throw a few more facts to you out there. The first battles of the American Revolution were in 1775, and many of the colonists were not in favor of all this. But by the end of the first 12 months of fighting with the British, and the British coming in and being so hostile about the whole thing, many of them started to side with the colonists, and the sentiment of freedom and independence became larger and larger and larger. Some of it was expressed in a best-selling pamphlet written in early 1776 by Thomas Paine. Anybody know what that was called? Be watching the notes there and see if anybody pops up with the name of it. But ladies and gentlemen, that was called Common Sense by Thomas Paine, and it expressed the idea of a revolutionary sentiment that the colonists should be separate from England. For you see, one of the arguments was taxation without representation. The colonists were being charged taxes more than once on some of the same things that people that living in England only had to pay taxes on once. It was very, very unfair. On June 7th, when the Continental Congress met at the Pennsylvania State House, later known as Independence Hall, the Virginia delegate Richard Henry Lee introduced a motion calling for the colony's independence. There was much heated debate, ladies and gentlemen, much heated debate. Congress postponed the vote on Lee's resolution, but appointed a five-man committee: Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, Roger Sherman, Benjamin Franklin, and Robert Livingston to draft a formal statement justifying the break with Great Britain. Now, they've drafted it up, and the Revolutionary War continues. Our history, ladies and gentlemen, is being played out now even. A lot of people don't truly understand. And I don't like to make any of our episodes political, and some people will always disagree with what you say or how you feel. But everything about what our forefathers did, even only with 13 colonies realizing what would become of this country, a large country of combined United States, they realized certain things had to be put in place. Some of those certain things are being bashed about now. Oh, how our forefathers would be rolling in their graves. I hesitate to throw too much in here that's political, but since it's the Captain's Quarters podcast, and we are pirates, and we do believe in the freedom of speech, ladies and gentlemen, representation is very important. Delegation is very important. And states' rights are very, very important. I heard it on the radio today, and it's the thing that makes the most sense. Having come with all these decisions made recently by the Supreme Court. There are three branches of the government, ladies and gentlemen, and the Supreme Court is only one of them. And their purpose is not to make law, but to interpret it. Please keep that in mind when you argue about whether you agree or disagree with the decisions that have been made over the last 2 weeks. Our forefathers set it up for all that. Think of how intelligent they were, ladies and gentlemen, when they started setting everything in motion for a voting process that would eventually include 50 states and hundreds of millions of voters. That electoral college actually does make sense. Our forefathers really did a fine job. We must stay strong as things go the way they go now. If somebody says something you don't believe in, just try to give facts and not opinions when you have your discussion. Facts will always win out. We celebrate today because the very fact that the forefathers knew that they had the start of something great is why we have the 4th of July to celebrate our independence. So ladies and gentlemen, let's see if I can find anything else here that might be interesting to throw at you. And of course, my two cohorts there, Mr. Longwood and Mr. Hellfire, are watching the comments. So if anything pops up, please throw it on the screen. During the summer of 1776, some colonists celebrated the birth of the independence by holding mock funerals for King George III as a way of symbolizing the end of the monarchy's hold on America and the triumph of liberty. Festivities back then included concerts, bonfires, parades, and the firing of cannons and muskets, usually accompanied by the first public readings of the Declaration of Independence, beginning immediately after its adoption. Philadelphia held the first annual commemoration of independence on July 4, 1777, while Congress was still occupied with the ongoing war. George Washington issued double rations of rum. Aye, he must be a pirate. To all his soldiers to mark the anniversary of independence in 1778 and again in 1781, several months before the key American victory at the Battle of Yorktown, Massachusetts, because the very first state to make the 4th of July, Massachusetts became the very first state to make 4th of July an official state holiday. After the American Revolution, Americans continued to commemorate Independence Day every year in celebrations that allowed the new nation's emergent political leaders to address citizens and create a feeling of unity. By the last decade of the 18th century, the two major political parties, the Federalist Party and the Democratic Republicans, yes, Democratic Republicans, that had arisen began holding separate 4th of July celebrations in many large cities. Here is a piece of trivia for you. Two presidents died on the same July 4th. Coincidence or something more? We'll talk about that another time. Are we getting any good comments there? Schoolhouse Rock was true quality education. I have to agree with you, Steve. True education it was. So, I'll not read too much more. Let's see what else we have here. Florida's population swelled by 23,000 people. Many were loyalists as the Patriots began to win battles, fled to Florida, which was still a loyal group to England. Also, ladies and gentlemen, one other thing, and some of you may not know this, when the British took over Florida, they divided it into two land masses, the Panhandle and then everything south. They would then be recognized as the 14th and 15th colonies of the British occupation here on this soil. I have a good friend that has written a book on all of that information, and we have already asked him if he would be a part of our show, It's just a matter of timing. And when we get him on the show, I'm sure you will find it to be a great wealth of information of the 20 years of the British occupation of Florida in 1763 to 1784. Any other good questions or comments? I know a lot of the uprisings were started by Scots and Irish. Well, of course they were. We love a good fight. Aye. Ben Franklin was also almost sent back to Europe because of the friends he had in England and France, and in fact argued that the king was not such a bad fellow after all. That would make it quite a hilarious thing for Ben Franklin, because he had to argue. But it makes a point there, Mr. Jim. It makes a point that we can all have friends on many sides of an argument. And the friendship is only as strong as the respect that you have for your friends in the expression of the freedom of their choices and decisions. Would I be right on that, Mr. Jim? In fact, John Hancock signed the Declaration of Independence in the boldest name possible because the Hancock family and the King's royal family were quite close. And John Hancock wanted the King to know, after several things had happened, that he was a huge part of this American Revolution. That's why John Hancock's name is so prominent on the Declaration of Independence. Little tidbits of information that we like to share. And we love to have others give us those same tidbits. Sharing is a lot of fun, and that's what this Captain's Quarters podcast is all about. And as I said earlier, tonight was to be a relaxed evening. No method to our madness other than to enjoy, show off our new podcast quarter, and make sure everybody knows after a 2-week hiatus, we're still up and running and alive. And we look forward to having a few more. Mr. Jim, I think we're going to have you come on the show. Pick a subject and let's make sure it's an evening for you to sit and chat and argue with us. What else do we have, Mr. Longwood?
This week in history.
Let me see what we have here. Go ahead and
like if I can find a pirate one.
Aye. And ladies and gentlemen, we have 6 artifacts to Captain Kidd's legacy and life in the Pirate and Treasure Museum. Come in and see him if you would. We have his personal effects box. We have the documentation of the trial. We have the ship's log of the ship from Boston, Massachusetts that takes him prisoner and set sail to put him on trial in 1700, executed in 1701. And sadly, ladies and gentlemen, Captain William Kidd was not hung just once, but twice. The first time the rope broke, and they put him back up there and did it all over again. So it's not always good to be a pirate. The art of conversation requires one to be good listener as well as orator. I like that. You're absolutely right, Mr. Jim. I always tell children when they come to the Pirate Museum for our tour, and I use it when I do magic shows also. I tell everybody that God granted us 2 ears and 2 eyes and 1 mouth so that we can observe and listen twice as much as we speak. That is always a good way to learn and watch a magic show, by sure. Aye. 2 eyes, 2 ears, 1 mouth. Twice as much observation, twice as much listening, half the speaking. Maybe sometimes that's what's wrong with people. They spend too much time shouting and screaming to be the loudest wheel in the cog. And it doesn't accomplish anything in the long run. It just makes everybody mad. You just heard a few explosions already in my neighborhood. Aye, it is starting. Which reminds me, ladies and gentlemen, the 4th of July fireworks celebration in downtown St. Augustine will be starting in about 45 minutes. But I'm sure with the explosions I've just heard, it'll be happening all over. So do yourselves and your fur babies a big favor. Cuddle them up or sit with them, or make sure that they have something to calm their nerves, and so they won't be so tired, excited, and frustrated and scared. We don't want our fur babies to suffer. We're reaching that point, ladies and gentlemen, right now, that I'd like to say thank you very much to everybody for being so supportive of our episodes over the last 6 or 7 months. We have some really good ones coming up that we're planning on doing. And if you would like to be a part of it, well, we'd like to have you be a part of it also. And in order to do that, maybe you want to be a show sponsor. Mr. Longwood, there they are. Our show sponsors are the Ancient City Sirens, Dick's Wings, Paper and Strings, Shiver Me Pictures, the Colonial Oak Music Park, and of course, the St. Augustine Pirate and Treasure Museum. Now, ladies and gentlemen, starting in October and November, we will be putting the call out to start our sponsorship program for 2023. So be watching, and if you want to continue on with your sponsorship because you're part of it, great. And maybe we can bring some more in. We do have some people waiting in the wings, and I hope that we can bring them along. So ladies and gentlemen, if you want to be a sponsor, contact us. You can contact me, Mr. Longwood, or Mr. Hellfire through this podcast Facebook page, Captain's Quarters Podcast, or through private messages to any one of us on Facebook. We'd love to hear from you. It's also nice to make sure that you thank your crew support. Our crew support is done by those people here that are part of the show, like Mayhem Productions. Mayhem Productions is not just me, ladies and gentlemen. There are many other people that are helping me out all along. These St. Augustine Swashbucklers. This podcast is about them and for them. And of course, my logo, Mayhem. The Powder Monkey. We haven't seen enough of him lately. It's time to bring him in soon. We may have to put Mini-Me on this one too, Mr. Navigator. And of course, there is the cartoon version by our friend Sketchy Guy out in Las Vegas, Nevada. We're still trying to tag down a date to get him on to be a part of our show and to be a guest and talk about his work and maybe drum up some business for him. But he's done a good job on our logo and our cartoon characters. Ladies and gentlemen, Captain's Quarters Podcast 21 at gmail.com. And you can be a part of our show, part of our listing, part of our sponsorship, and a part of our crew. And of course, we do a lot of this for charity. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, not just this podcast, but the crew of the St. Augustine Swashbucklers. Our charities, our main charities are Inc., Investing in Kids. Their main goal is to help teachers and faculty members of the school district of St. Johns County with a little extra money here and there to buy supplies and things needed to teach our children the things they need to know. St. Augustine Youth Services, how do I explain it? They help take care of children that have been removed from homes or have no parents right now. And we've been to the campus, the boys' campus, and we've helped them out, and we plan to keep on doing so. Christmas is a big time for us to help them. And of course, the Humane Society, and our good friend, Mr. Rise, is in the audience watching us, and we helped him out for a food drive for all those cats and dogs. And I think it's about time to sit down now and talk about doing another one for the summertime. So soon to be. Also the logo for our Toys for Pits, Pits standing for Pirates in Training. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the logo we use for our Christmas toy drive. Not only toys do we raise, but money and whatever else we can, food, to help those that are having a tough time at Christmas time. That is what we do. And that's what this podcast does. And ladies and gentlemen, it's what the St. Augustine Swashbucklers do. Something just came into my head that I want to tell everybody about. A date has not been set. I'm not even sure I told Mr. Longwood this. So he's getting to hear it firsthand. Mr. Longwood and Mr. Hellfire and I have been talking about doing something new with our podcast called the Captain's Parlay. And what the purpose of the Captain's Parlay is to just take our cameras, our laptops, and to go downtown in St. George Street, pick another night, not a Monday night, but another night, and just record as much time as we can, as much footage as we can, sitting on St. George Street, talking to the tourists, having a good time, letting them talk on our camera, tell us what they think of St. Augustine or whatever else, and just have a righteously good time. Yes, Mini-Me will be there, that's for sure. Well, I've got it secured already. Our first one, the date has not been chosen yet, but our first one will be at Augie's Draft Beer down on St. George Street. And they were adamant about us trying to do it on a Friday night. That's a pretty good thing. So ladies and gentlemen, be looking for that. I do apologize to our listeners and all the people that have been a part of our support. The last 4 5 weeks have been tough. As many of you know, the missus and I had to be moved out of our home after 15 years, and it was a stressful time. And to move 15 years worth of junk, crap and stuff is not an easy chore. And it constantly reminded me of George Carlin's whole monologue on stuff. I won't repeat it, but go look it up. But it's been a tough time, but we're now happy in a new home. You can see our podcast room. I'm rebuilding our backyard to a social status that will be even better than it was in the old place. And we'll be inviting many people to come and join us and socialize and drink our rum and have a good time. So we'll be back on track now with the crew and with the podcast, doing what we have talked about doing what we know we want to do. Happy birthday, America. Sketchy Guy, there you are. Well, welcome to the show. We really, truly need to tag a date with you. Hold on. Sometimes when you sneeze, you just sneeze. Sketchy Guy, we'd like to tag a date with you. Send me some dates. Let's talk real quick and put you on the list and do something between now and the end of the summer. Everybody loves your artwork, and we'd like to have you do some more. But of course, we want to make sure we send you some pirate booty and treasure for our work. Aye, yes, very good. Cheers to you. I hope everything's good for you out there in Nevada. In fact, the missus will be out there in Nevada in November. She's attending her son's wedding. Maybe there's a way that she can at least say hello to you in person. And maybe we can record something for the podcast. Very good. Let's see. Patreon. How about that, Mr. Longwood? Let's talk about how we can share our support with each other. Patreon, ladies and gentlemen. You can join Patreon and become a member of our crew by having a small monthly payment made to Patreon that will help us keep up with what we're doing. We have several Patreon members. In fact, we have 6 first mates. That's pretty good, ladies and gentlemen. We have 4 sponsors. Actually, it's a little bit more. We should update that. And 221 subscribers. We're doing well. And from everything Mr. Longwood is telling me, when our shows go to YouTube, people have the advantage of going back in the logs and looking at any of the shows they want. And we're getting between 1,500 and 2,000 views a week on any and all of our shows combined. We thank you very much for that support. We appreciate it greatly. Is there anything we've missed? Any other comments along the way that I might have missed? With this new studio, I have 2 screens. One of them right here so I can see my notes. But the other one, well, it's a little further away, and even my glasses won't let me see everything. My cat is a crew pirate cat. She goes looking for the load bang. Very good. Nightingale in Florida. My cat just got catnip for their nerves. Hey, that's a good idea. I wonder if we have any catnip here. I have my rum, though. My dog won't drink it with me, but I can't think of anything else. Mr. Hellfire, you have anything you want to add? And by the way, let me remind you from the captain to a crewmate, Mr. Hellfire, when the captain needs to speak, you need to shut up.
Well, I just couldn't help it. I've been gone for, 3 weeks now.
Aye.
I think
We're
we're all on
gonna put you
track.
on some assignments coming up here. We've got some ideas on some things we're going to make you do. So we'll see what happens. There go a few more blasts. It's starting to get dark outside, so I'm sure it will actually start to sound like the 4th of July all over. Our shows are a lot of fun, ladies and gentlemen. This one was a kickback, laid back, just a chance for us to breathe and get back into the swing of things. We're always looking for suggestions and ideas. My friend, Mr. Matt Frick, who wrote the book that we have in the Pirate Museum on Thomas II, loaned me a book this past week all about, and we've been talking about this, and he said he had the book and he loaned it to me, so I have to look through it. All about the myths and the superstitions of the various cultures of the sea and the nautical world. It's a very thick book. I'll probably show it off to everybody next week and start doing some research, and we'll pick a good time to do the entire myths that we can and the superstitions of the nautical people. It's not just women are not allowed on board pirate ships or military ships. There's a whole lot. And I'll give you one that's a very interesting one. And it's a very cool one. It's a very nice one. Many of you have been out on boats and ships out in the water, and the dolphins have come and swam at the bow. Ladies and gentlemen, the sailors and old nautical men of the sea back in the day believed that the dolphins were the souls of departed sailors and pirates, and those dolphins were there now to protect you along your journeys. That's a good one. I believe we've reached the end of our show, Mr. Longwood, Mr. Hellfire. Anything else we need? I can't think of anything other than another cheer to everyone and a thank you to the crew, the swashbucklers. And if you're interested in joining our crew, July 17th, send us a message on Facebook and we'll send you the information, the private details on where to go to be a part of our crew. If you have friends, if you're in the crew and you're on the podcast right now and you have friends, bring them out. It's time to kick our crew in the arse and make us known again. This crew has been around since 2003, and it's time to do something to prove it. And I'm happy to say, I don't know if any of them are watching, but we have formed a really great and strong alliance with the Seawolf Privateers of the Palm Coast and Flagler area. We'll be working with them as they will be working with us. And we're open to working with any of the other pirate crews that would like to step up and be loyal pirate crews. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe it's time for us to sign out. And we always sign out with the proper thing, the proper way, the proper say. Mr. Longwood, take it away.
Part of the podcast.
Part of the crew.
As always, you all are our crew, and we thank you for your support. Huzzah and cheers. Till next time.